What's up, everybody? This is the Cartel here with the War Pigs week. I don't remember 13, 15, 11, something in the NFL, MFFL season. And here with my guy, Corey.
What's
Um,
up?
this probably won't be an hour-long session, but we're going to go through everything. Corey, I don't know that you look at the games that got played this weekend, most of them were blowouts. So I don't think we need to spend 25 minutes going through and pulling apart all of the teams. I mean, there just wasn't a lot of close games. But let's go through it quickly, just if there's something that jumps out.
All right. Okay, we'll just go in order here. We
Can you
got
make your screen? Can you make your screen bigger? Pull the corners.
it's not going to make a difference for that.
That doesn't. Okay, I didn't know if it spread it out.
Yeah,
Um,
kind of look like that.
got it. Well, even with the small print, I can still tell that the Bullies got beat pretty bad. They actually scored more points than he usually does. So, good for him. But it wasn't close to enough. And he just, he had some players that did some stuff, and DeAndre Hopkins had a pretty decent game, but
Yeah, I mean, he actually had a decent week, and he looked consistent here, double digits. Only one would let him down for sure was Cole Kmet, but everybody else is low to mid teens, and that's the problem. He didn't have anybody blow up. So I have a similar lineup here to that, except I had 30 from Miles Sanders, and there's the difference.
Yep.
So that's how his team is. His team can have a good week, but there's usually not a player, on his team that blows up and gets you that 30, 40 point game. So
not this season. I mean, Barkley probably could do it, I guess, but there's not anybody else on his squad that's capable of that. So I would say 95 to 100 is probably the max that he can score. And in this league, scoring 100 will probably win you half the games. But I don't know if that's going to beat the top teams. I'm in the same boat, so I'm not down on him. It's just the way that it is this year.
yeah.
So
then we got Lead Dogs and Royal Oak Conan Barbarians, which is basically the same story. The score is almost the same.
Yep.
And Rod gets 45 from Josh Jacobs, and St. Brown gets 23, and that easily covers for Cordarrelle Patterson not doing great. But that's 8 points isn't awful either. But Mooney
he scored 138 with no points from Mooney because he got hurt. Like it could have been 150, 160. You're not going to probably beat anybody if they have a 45-point player in general. And Godwin blew up for him, but there's just too many. There's just too many holes. Swift just keeps getting vultured. I'm sure that's disappointing and frustrating for him. And Paris Campbell's got 75-year-old Matt Ryan throwing to him, who's just, I don't know what their solution is. Maybe they get a top quarterback next season in the draft because they are just ass garbage in general.
They look terrible.
Horrible. And Adam Thielen, he probably could have started Thielen, right? Over one, Paris Campbell probably is the right move moving forward, but that wouldn't have been enough either. So, at the end of the day.
Well, at this point, he's trying to get a high draft pick, not on purpose, but that's where he's headed anyway. So,
well, yeah, exactly. You want to play a full squad, but you don't necessarily need to lose the first pick if that's what you're going to have.
Right.
What's the next one?
Next one is Hazards and Blues. This is an awful game, and this is a big loss for Tim. We can talk about that when we go back to the rank or the standings here, but this is a game that he really needed. He's not on the outside looking in at the playoffs, but he could be if he's not careful here in the next couple of weeks. And if you get dinged like this to, no offense to Nando, he knows it, one of the worst teams in the league this year. That's only his third win, 82 to 76. And the real problem for Tim is injuries now.
Yep.
Or you get ETN. It seems like he probably could have come back, and they just didn't bother because Jermichael Hasty was playing great, and McCaffrey's always dinged up, so you can't count on him. I guess Wilson got dinged up as well, right?
Yep.
There's all three of your running backs.
Yep. And Pittman plays for Indy, so him getting 15 points is probably his max. Like, yes, he lost this game and it sucks, but also his forecast isn't great because the people he's picked up, there's nobody on waivers that's really any good. So he's gonna just hope and pray. I don't know who he plays next. We can look at that in a minute, but it certainly is a big punch in the mouth. And I know he was frustrated, but he will make the playoffs. So maybe CMC's knee is better or whatever. So
and then for the Blues, I just want to mention T. Higgins doing really well while Chase has been out for Cincinnati. I don't think that's really a surprise, but it's 20-point game for Higgins, and on my end with Burrow, he hasn't really missed a step with Chase out. So they got a lot of talent at the wide receiver core in that team.
He gets Deshaun Watson back next week too, which is an X factor. We don't know if he'll take a couple games to get back into it or just come out swinging. I have to imagine he'll be better than Garoppolo just from the get-go. So we'll see.
Next up, Commandos and the Bad Company. This is another decent scoring game, but the same situation where Commandos got 22 from his quarterback Cousins, and nobody else blew up. Everybody, a lot of people had good games like we talk about, but then he's got this section, Jacoby Myers, Freiermuth, those guys not doing almost anything, and then Dameon Pierce, I don't know what happened with that. I didn't see that game. Did he just not get chances? Did he get hurt?
They got destroyed. They were down like 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. They just had to throw. It was a bad game script.
So
and then playing Perry, who I'm a big fan of, was brilliant because he's a good running back, especially as a handcuff. 17 points out of that. I mean, his top 3 players those are all solid scores.
Right.
But when you're playing a team that, didn't have, well, that's not true. I mean, Michael Carter didn't do well either, and Pollard played quiet. But you're right, going behind Garrett Wilson blowing up and your Dalton Schultz getting 17 points.
That was a big one. That was a big one because you expect Hurts to get, mid-20s at this point. Pretty consistent all year. But I mean, he didn't. I don't know how. It's almost, you look at this like, how did he get to almost 120? Like it's a weird game. But
he left Dillon on the bench. He could have played him instead of Carter and would have added another 10 points.
Well, with all the injuries on his team too, this is going to be a rough, lead into the playoffs for him. But like we always say, or at least I always say, you just got to get into the playoffs to do some damage. So we'll see. He's 8-4, Bad Company we're talking about. And, Commandos is right there. This is a big loss for him, being 5-7 now. So
yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. That's a huge, and it's good for me, bad for him. And, and he's Untouchables, Motor City Kings. Sorry, Mike, you actually beat 100 points and played really well and had good players. And, even without Chase, didn't really matter. He had Robinson on the bench with 19 points. Brooklyn Untouchables is just pretty stacked this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I'm looking at these and saying, oh, Hawkinson made the difference, but then Kings had Njoku also with double digits. Even his kicker had 14.
Yep.
But then you look back on the other side, and Untouchables had 12 from his kicker. So they're matching each other, and then you just get a couple guys with teens, and then you get Juju with 5. This is another game. I'm looking at this like, how did he get that high with those numbers at certain spots? But Debo disappointing with 5. This is a really close game. This is obviously the game of the week here, and this was a big loss for Mike. So we'll see. We'll talk about that in a minute, like you said, but that's a big loss. So we'll see.
Yeah, this is where that luck part comes in. I mean, he played close to the perfect lineup, and the players make the plays, or they don't. And at the end of the day, you can score 140 points and lose to someone that scores 141. There's no guarantee,
Yep. And then the last one here, Pit Bulls and your team, the Cartel.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Ted, this is what this season has looked like half the time, where a couple weeks he'll score pretty well, and he's actually got 4 wins. But when you score 70, you're not going to beat anyone, unless you're Terry, and then you probably will beat half the league on that week. But
and Harris got hurt. Mike Evans has had up and down games all season. Josh Palmer, is decent, but I think Keenan Allen being back hurt his receptions. His new quarterback he just picked up fucking was a stud. He would have scored 60 points if he didn't have Herbert in. There's nobody really on his bench. Ezekiel Elliott's almost impossible to play right now because you just don't. Maybe now with Damon Harris out, right. And then my guys didn't really have a great game other than Justin Jefferson on Thanksgiving, but Taylor got 17. I didn't watch that game. I didn't even know how many points he got. I just knew I had one, so I didn't need to watch it. I mean, this wasn't a stellar showing by either team.
No, but you got it's who you play and when you play them, and you got the right opponent for that week. 99 is decent, but like we keep saying, I mean, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other teams that scored over 100.
Yep.
So you're
and the
right
luck
there.
I had earlier in the season is no matter what my score, and other people have had the same thing. I looked at the other day with points for, points against. So there's some games where you score 100 every week and you just happen to play somebody having their best week. Yep. And just, that's the luck part.
Yep. So back here at the standings, Superstar Division, I'm still in first by a game over Bad Company. Even after all Dave's injuries, he's still right there, 1 game behind. This is week 13 coming up, so we have 2 more games. Right, 2 more games, so this could flip depending on what happens. Obviously, we're both in at this point, though. All-American Division
and Blues and Barbarians are completely out of this.
Right.
Yeah.
All-American Division, Rod's got that locked up. Can't lose that division, so he'll have, at the very least, the 3rd spot. And it depends on all 3 teams here at first place are 9-3. So it's going to probably come down to some tiebreaker to see who gets a bye or not. But Rod's actually obviously in, and like we just mentioned, this is a big loss for the Kings and a big win for you, putting you 1 game behind him at 5-7. And somehow the Broad Street Bullies are also 5-7. So I think this entire division is still in play. Not the division, but these 3 teams could still make the playoffs.
Yeah, if you look at it, the totality of it, you figure Pigs, Bad Company in, Lead Dogs in, Untouchables, Biohazards most likely in.
Yeah, you can't say I don't think you can say the Biohazards though. He could lose.
I'm saying most likely, even if they lost the next 2, they'd be at 7-7. And they would be tied with Connecticut Commandos. You have to look at the tiebreaker, but I don't know he's going to lose 2 in a row, but who knows, right? I'm just saying most likely. So what it feels like is Kings, Cartel, Bullies, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Commandos all fighting for that last spot.
Yeah, I'm still going to argue with you about Biohazards because we just talked about him losing almost 3 running backs in the same week.
Yeah,
I think it's a very good chance he loses the next 2 games. I haven't looked yet. We can look in a minute to see whose next 2 games are.
Well, I for sure hope he does. I for sure hope he does because I want to see his head explode.
Untouchables next week, so I don't know how he's going to win that game.
CMC will be back next week.
Yeah. Anyway, Power Pack Division, real quick. Untouchables does not have that locked up unless he's got the tiebreaker over Tim, which I don't remember. I don't know what happened when they played each other. My guess is he does have the tiebreaker over Tim, so he's probably good there. And Biohazard is 7-5, like we just talked about. Not sure. Connecticut Commandos right now, these 5-7 teams like you too, outside looking in, but still a shot.
Yep, mathematically.
And
here's the deal: the next 2 games, yeah, for sure. The next 2 games are going to be all within your division, I believe. So like I play Lead Dogs, and then I play the Bullies to finish it up. So it's going to be really interesting, the shuffling that happens at the end of the season, because it's going to make could potentially make a drastic change within I would need commandos and biohazards to both split a game to dilute both of those and also win out for me to make it, as would the bullies and the kings both have to win out as well. I think maybe not. Kings maybe not because they have a better record.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Weird.
Real quick before we move on to matchups and playoff stuff, I think this it's only $100, but it's interesting, the points race here. I took over first place last week by like 4, and I think I gained 4 more points this week, or no, 3 points. So I'm up 7 points in the points rates over Untouchables, and Bad Company is right there. Only down 19. So I think that's pretty interesting. This little graph here is pretty funny. Yeah, so what do you want to talk about here? You want to talk about matchups for next week, playoff?
Let's real quick though, before we jump into matchups, I think that's probably a good place to go next. Tell me about, look at the teams.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're almost to the end of the season. Which team has surprised you the most? Positively? Which team has surprised you the most negatively? Understanding that it's not necessarily a knock on the manager. It's just
sure
into it, and not even historically. Like Nandu's always been good. This year he's having a down year. Got it. But like even after the draft, when you looked at the teams, you're like, oh, they're going to be stacked, and then they weren't, or vice versa. Is there something that jumps out at you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been harping on it all year, giving him a hard time, but the lead dogs after the KW3 trade, I thought he was done because I thought that was a massive mistake. It still is a massive mistake, but it doesn't seem to matter because he's right there. He's going to win his division. I don't know if that's the first time he's won his division, but I think so.
I think so too.
So this is a great season for Rod. He's scoring a lot of points, and he's got the lineup's really good. So that's a positive. I think going into the season, we thought the Kings were going to be absolute garbage, and he was for his first number of weeks. And then he made some trades and turned things around, and now he's back in playoff position. So I think that's surprising. Your whole division's interesting, right? Because you being at 5 and 7 is not something we expected. And similarly, the bullies being 5 and 7, still possibly making the playoffs, is not what we expected. So
and I beat the bullies earlier this year. I beat the bullies by like a point or a fraction of a point.
Yeah.
And had I not done that, he would have been 6 and 6 right now, and I would be out at 4 and 8. So 4 and 7. So yeah, all those games earlier in the season when it doesn't feel like it really matters, maybe not for everybody, but sometimes you're like, oh, it's early, I have time. Every fucking game matters just as much as at the end. Like there's no not important games.
Yep. Go. What do you think?
So yeah, lead dogs, I agree with that.
Positively.
I mean, I think anybody's surprised the Untouchables has a good squad. They had a good 5 keepers coming in. They drafted well. They haven't been hit with a bunch of injuries. They did. Chase has been hurt, but like he drafted well enough. He has depth, and also he hasn't been like quarterback getting hurt or like ACL injury. It's been like, oh, I have a hip problem for 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever it is. So like good for him. He's navigated through it. I think Bad Company being 8 and 4 and potentially rivaling you, and also honestly the War Pigs being in the first place, getting the 12th pick. Yeah, great. You had 5 keepers that were good because everyone has 5 good keepers, but like getting the 12th pick, it's hard to be number 1. It's hard to win and be number 1 the next year. Some people can do it, but there's some strategy and some luck involved for sure.
Yeah, I mean, on my team, like we're fond of saying, winning 2 out of the last 3 has not been like this stomp through the season. It's me barely getting to the playoffs usually, and then surprising people are getting lucky. And this year, this is completely different. So I hope I don't pull a Bruin here and stomp into the playoffs and completely fall apart. But
it happens every year. I can't remember.
Happen to somebody
with the number 1 seed won. I can't remember a year that happened, but maybe it has.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then I don't know, Power Pack division. I'm just looking at also conference records, and this is interesting. Whoa. Okay,
There it
don't do
was. He
that.
figured it out.
Don't do that. Now you'll be able to see it for sure. Yeah. Okay, we might as well leave it. There you go. So this whole division is 2-2. They all beat each other up. I think that's pretty interesting. Even Pitbull's at 4-8 has 2 wins in the division. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'll be interested to see how the new guys do with the draft and getting low draft picks, and some of them have acquired picks through trades. So
right.
First year sucks, take it in the chin, and then draft well next year and they could be back at top. Real quick, I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. I'm gonna test your knowledge, no looking this up. And if you guys are watching, you can do it too. Can you give me the top 5 in order running backs as far as points this year?
Come on. No, not even close.
Try.
I'm pretty sure Eckler's on that list.
Who's number 1 though?
Number 1.
Somebody just posted about it in Slack.
Well, I haven't looked at Slack today. It could be Josh Jacobs, I guess, right?
Josh Jacobs, number 1.
Josh Jacobs, and I've got another one in that top 5 was Jamal Williams.
Nope.
How is he not?
It's not. Josh Jacobs,
Austin top 5 Eckler, in points.
Austin Eckler.
Okay.
Derrick Henry.
Really?
And Saquon Barkley. Quietly in the top 5.
Yeah, that's surprising.
The next 5: McCaffrey, Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, Joe Mixon, Tony Pollard.
Yeah, Tony Pollard is
top 10.
Future of the Cowboys for sure.
Okay, so now we're gonna try something different. Now we're gonna do wide receivers.
Justin Jefferson has to be in there.
Stephon Diggs, number 1.
Okay.
Justin Jefferson, number 2.
Yeah.
Who's 3, 4, and 5?
Oh man. Chase would have been in there. I assume he's not now.
Not even in the top 15, I don't think.
Right. Man.
Devontae Adams with 10 points less than Jefferson.
Okay.
And Tyreek Hill.
Oh yeah.
2 points less than Adams. And Cooper Kupp, the 5th highest scorer. He's been out for 3 weeks. He's still 5th highest scorer.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy. And then it's followed by Waddle, Lamb, AJ Brown, Amari Cooper, and Christian Kirk. Yeah,
Christian Kirk is got to be a pleasant surprise for whoever owns him. I don't know who has him, but
that's Christian Kirk is either Tim or Nandu.
Yeah, that's one of those guys that always was supposed to be good in Arizona. He gets traded, goes to a horrible team, and all of a sudden he's having a great year. So
need the right fit. All right, last one I'm going to do. This one should be easier to do. Defenses. Just kidding. Tight end.
Oh, tight end's a mess. It's got to be Kelsey at 1.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Like by double.
Yeah.
Kelsey has 200 fucking points.
I'm recording right now. Thank you.
200 points for Kelsey. Number 2 is 117 points. It's an 85-point difference. So not even in the same ballpark. Who's number 2?
I have no idea. I mean, my guy has been hurt half the season and played
Mark Andrews still number 2.
No idea.
Mark Andrews still number 2.
Who is?
Mark Andrews.
Wow, that's
how bad tight ends are this year. Number 3 is TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then Dallas Goedert, who's also been on IR for a couple of weeks, is number 4. And Zach Ertz on IR from a couple of weeks is number 5. It's just and Taysom Hill's number 6, FYI. George Kittle, number 7, Pat Freiermuth, 8, Juwan Johnson, Cole Kmet, and Njoku.
Man, Kittle, that's
the point difference between Njoku and Goddard is 15. And then between Hawkinson and Andrews is 7. And then Andrews and Kelsey is 92.
Yeah, that's insane.
So if you don't get Kelsey, it doesn't fucking matter. Just draft whoever you want to draft. Yeah. All right, let's jump into the forecast for next week.
All right.
Also, I'm recording in my bedroom, so if the background doesn't look good and then all the lights and I'm not prepared, it's because I'm a little bit off today.
I think you're okay.
And I have a puppy, so I'm
All
exhausted.
right, the first game here is War Pigs versus Bad Company. This is obviously a massive game. This will determine most likely the winner of this division. And right now, let's see. I have a full line. Looks like Tyreek Hill's questionable. I don't even know why. Right now, I have a full lineup. Everybody should be playing. And at the moment, I've got Christian Watson in from Green Bay since he seems to keep scoring every week. So that's the only substitution is I took out Ayuk and put in Watson. And even with Jordan Love at quarterback, he scored. So I don't know how I can take him out at this point.
Carter is on his side. He's got Carter, who's timeshare. Rashad White's been great. He's playing the Saints on Monday night. Pollard's been great. Waddle's been great. Garrett Wilson's been great. Schultz has been good. Like he picked up some new guys on waivers this morning or yesterday. Yeah. So I mean, he could definitely beat you, but I wouldn't bet on it.
Yeah, Mixon right now is questionable. I thought I heard he would probably play this week, so that would be a big one too.
If Hurts blows up or Tony Pollard just runs all over the Colts because they're going to be up by 4 touchdowns and they can just run, then that could get a little bit silly. Other than that, I don't think he'll win.
Yeah, I have Burrow versus KC, so I'm obviously hoping for a complete shootout in that game. Jamal Williams versus Jacksonville, that's a good matchup for running backs. Eckler just always does well. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to say who I think is going to win. I have no idea. That's a close one.
And it almost, anyways, okay, what's the next one?
Next one's Barbarians and Blues. This game doesn't matter at all, except for draft seeding. So I don't know why we need to talk about it, honestly.
Yeah.
No offense, guys.
No, I think it's fine. I don't think they care. I probably won't be watching either. So
yeah,
I've already checked out. Send me the Venmo request and I'll look at you guys next year.
Yeah. Next one is another big game, Lead Dogs and Cartel. This game really doesn't matter for Rod, except for possible playoff seeding. This is a huge game for you. And it looks like
Rob, why don't you put Pickett in since you don't care? Just play Pickett and like the Rams defense and
right.
Actually, he can put in his bad players off the bench and still beat me. So it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Squad.
Well, as we've been talking about all year, Rod has had a really great year. But again, you look at the bench, there's almost no one there. He's got one guy for each spot. And if anybody gets hurt, he's in deep shit.
Kelsey's going to do Kelsey things.
Yep.
Jacob seems to be next level for whatever reason this season. He's questionable, so maybe we'll see. Pittsburgh's got pretty stout defense. So I don't know that Cordell is going to go bonkers. He might get 10, 12 points, whatever. And honestly, Lamar Jackson has the ability to throw up 30, 40 points in any given game. But when I traded with Rodney last season to rent Jackson for the last 6 weeks of the season, that trade didn't work out for me because Lamar Jackson sucked the last 6 games. He got hurt. He had COVID. He wasn't good. And for whatever reason, he's not been throwing up those big points. So he's not as unbeatable as we might think based on his record.
No, I'm looking at the numbers, the points for him this year, and he started off on fire 21, 41, 40. And since then, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games in the teens.
Yeah.
That is not good for a quarterback, especially of that caliber. So
not for that salary.
No, and in real life too.
Exactly. So on the
so
side, Tua played so well that they pulled him at like halftime. So that kind of jacked me last week. He could have kept playing. Taylor's on a shit team. Kamara's on a shit team. I luckily picked up Latavius Murray, who's been passable 10, 12 points a game. Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb keep me in it. Kittle has been off all season. I don't have anybody on my bench to speak of till maybe Goddard comes back. I got one foot in the grave, so I've been picking up players that I think might be keepers next year, like Odell, who I think is weird as shit, but
right.
he ends up being good and coming back and blowing up in the playoffs and doing great. Maybe I keep him as my 3 receivers. I don't know. So yeah, again, I'm hopeful that I win. But
yeah, I got to be honest with this. I'm looking at matchups too. The Jets have a great defense, and that's who Justin Jefferson's playing. Kamara has had 2 or 3 games where he's been really good, and the rest suck because the Saints are awful.
Yep.
Latavius Murray, like you said, might get you 10. That's probably ceiling. Kittle's done next to nothing. I think you're in deep shit here.
I think so too. Well, it doesn't matter because next week, 14, Taylor and Kamara are both on bye. Same time.
Jesus.
So even if I happen to get past Rod this week, I got to play.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I'm playing Terry, so I could win with like 65 points potentially.
Right.
But it's certainly that's why I picked up Murray and some of these other running backs this weekend. It was because Monster maybe will come back just because I don't have the players to put into play.
Yeah.
Right.
Next is the Bullies and the Kings, and just now seeing that currently the Kings don't have a quarterback because he's just got Kyler Murray and his backup Colt McCoy. So he's obviously going to have to do something because he needs to win this game. The rest of his team is pretty stacked here.
I don't like Ramondre against Buffalo, and I don't like Henry against Philly. But you're right. I mean,
I think Henry's going to get his points, but Keenan Allen just came back. You don't really know what you're going to get from him. Debo just had a bad game.
Let me look at Bullies real quick.
Yeah.
Bullies have Hopkins on a bye, Foreman's on a bye, Daniel Jones is their quarterback. He has no other quarterback to put in. Who is he going to put in? He's going to put in. No, he doesn't have anybody to even put in to take those bye spots. That's good.
Well, he's got Drake London. He can do something. He could put Claypool in, although.
Oh, I didn't scroll down far enough. Yeah, Drake London for Hopkins against Pittsburgh, though, maybe, and then for his running back, who's he gonna put in?
Well, it's a flex spot, so he could just put Claypool there.
That's true.
Or he could Waller's not even playing. Could put Ingram in too as well.
Yeah, I feel like we're at a garage sale trying to put together.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a game the Kings should win even without a quarterback. So you actually kind of wonder if maybe that's what he'll do, but he has to win this game. So if it was me, I wouldn't chance it. I'm dropping what I need to pick up somebody that's going to play.
Yeah. So if he wins this game and the next one, I think he's in.
Yeah.
Last spot, probably. If he loses either of them, then we're all because he's 6-6.
Right.
Yeah. And so I need to win out. Terry needs to win out. Mike has a little more wiggle room, but not much. He needs to just win out too, just to make it clean.
Next one's untouchables and biohazards. And like we said, with all the injuries and everything, I don't think there's a shot in hell that the Hazards win this game. And like we said, he needs to no, he doesn't need to, but he's got to win one of the last 2, right? He's 7-5. So we'll look real briefly here after we're done with the next one here to see what the last week's matchups are. But the Hazards have to win one of the next 2 games at 7-5.
Yeah, if CMC is out, indeed, and Etienne is also, it's questionable if he's out, he's done. If they both play and you have Mahomes playing, and then you have, Lockett, Pittman, Kirk's not great. Like,
I don't know. Looking on the other side real quick.
You can't vote against the untouchables, right? They've scored 150 points a game. I don't think anybody beats them.
But he does have Connor on a bye and DJ Moore also on a bye, which means he's throwing in
Brian Robinson,
maybe Kareem Hunt or Brian Robinson. Chase is now questionable, so I don't know if he'll play. That would obviously be a clear winner to throw him in, but he's also got Slayton, who's had a few good games here.
Chase is back for sure.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I don't bet.
Still going untouchables
there. This game.
And then, unfortunately, pit bulls and commandos don't matter either. So Well, wait, I don't want to say that.
Commandos do.
Commandos is 5-7, so he could win the last two. So let's look at this real quick. He's got a full lineup. Commandos do. Pitbulls, I mean, has a full lineup for what he has. I don't see.
Look at the defenses again. I'm not downing anybody, but Kirk Cousins is playing the Jets. So the same reason you didn't like Jefferson against the Jets. I'd imagine Kirk's got the same problem. Aaron Jones against Chicago. Gibson against the Giants, which is actually has a good defense. We don't talk about it. Damian Pierce against Cleveland. McLaren against the Giants. Like they're not pushed. And you got Buffalo against the Patriots. Like they're not pushed over defenses. That doesn't mean that he'll lose. It's not necessarily, they do red, green based on your opponent. There's not a lot of green on that.
Yep. Here, I figured out how to blow it up. Not sure how to get it. There we go.
We'll figure out next week, guys.
We got it right here. I just wanted to quickly look at the last week's matchups, which are right here. This is good for me. I play the Blues.
Yep.
Untouchables play the Commandos. That's a win. These are going to be pretty easy here. Hazards, again, like we just said, has to win one of the next two. And he plays the Pitbulls next week. That's good for him.
Yep.
Lead Dogs plays the Kings. I feel like the Kings are, well, I don't know. Again, he could win this week, but then he's looking at probably a loss next week, possibly. So he's right there. He's probably, my guess is he'll be the last team in.
Who's that?
The Kings. I think he wins this week and loses next week. So he'll be 7-7.
He plays Terry this week.
He plays the Bullies this week.
Yeah, he'll win this week.
And then, like you said, you play the Bullies next week, which should be a win for you. But this is how this season has gone. The Bullies could beat anyone at any time by 60-55. So
I can tell you if I make it to the very end, and the only reason I don't make the playoffs is because Terry beat me. I'm gonna have to get some therapy or something, probably.
Yeah, for sure. And then lastly, Bad Company plays Barbarians. So like I said, our division is going to be determined by this week's game, which is War Pigs and Bad Company. That's going to determine, because we both should win next week, barring any craziness. So this is a massive game for both of us, but we're both in the playoffs regardless, so not that massive.
I need Bad Company. No. Connecticut Commandos to lose, and I need Mike to lose this week. Do you have a chance?
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. So, yeah, I'll just say this, looking at it, we got 1, 2, like you said, War Pigs, Bad Company, both in. So that's 2, Lead Dogs in, that's 3, Untouchables in, that's 4. Those are guaranteed, right?
Most likely Biohazards.
Hazards probably, but he needs to win one of those next 2 games probably, because, well, let's see.
If we all end up at 7-7,
if we give it to him, that's 5. And then it's a fight between, and I think you're done. Sorry. With those matchups, I think you're done. I think Terry's done. I think it's going to be Kings. I think it's going to be Biohazards, Kings, and then everybody else I just said, which is War Pigs, Bad Company, Lead Dogs, and Untouchables. I think it's Biohazards and Kings.
Well, that's great.
That's my guess.
The only thing worse than not making the playoffs is barely not making it again, the 6th pick. So you get no money, no chance, and you're also not getting a good draft.
You're also not getting a good pick.
But I was just close enough that I had to keep fighting for it and not just pull up stakes and be like, all right, I'm just going to lose. It is what it is.
But we've been picking wrong all year. We're probably right around 500 as far as picking games. So who the hell knows what's going to happen?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you for one thing for sure. After this next week, we'll have much more clarity on who's in, who's out, what has to happen. So maybe we'll do a longer one of these next week.
Yep.
Cool.
All right.
Good luck to everybody except for Lead Dogs and Mike. And we'll see you guys next week.
Peace out.